So it came the first evening of the fast. We have a berry ceremony. You eat the berries that are local and share in that. And then early the next morning we get up and we're beginning these 4 days of fasting, and we go into the sweat lodge. How many people here have been in a sweat lodge? Okay, quite a few anyway, not that many. With a good elder, it's a very good experience. If it's a good elder, then by all means I encourage you. So we did the sweat. So a sweat, though, along with praying, is draining moisture from you. So I'm like, oh great, 4 days no water, and now I'm dehydrated just to start. So that's how it begins. Then we go out into the bush and you have a little hut that you've built, and you have a little fireplace in front of the hut. And you make a fire there, and that's where you spend the next 4 days praying. And because you're not eating, you're not drinking, you get very cool at night. And you're supposed to stay up late to try to stay until you hear the first bird sing in the morning. So you're giving up food, water, and sleep for the time. I remember one night, it was taken forever for the first bird to sing, and I heard one guy go, "Cock-a-doodle-doo." It was good enough for me. So, but again, just that really doing everything we can, because God's words are so important to us, and that the Aboriginal people recognize that in that kind of celebration. So went through the few days. I remember this second night in, one of the elders, he came by and he said, "Murray, you're looking good." And I said, "I must look a lot better than I feel." And I said, "You know, I've given up food and water and sleeping, and still I've gotten nothing from God." And the elder said, "It's coming. Just be patient, wait, it's coming." And then I heard him go to the next guy down the line about 50 yards away. "Ted, you're looking good." Oh, it's a line he gives to everybody, so okay. So encouragement words are important. So then it came to the last night, and I still hadn't gotten anything. And I was getting pretty frustrated. And so it was dusk, it was becoming dark, and I needed to get my fire going, and so I put wood shavings and little wood on and some bigger wood, and it just kind of smoked a bit that it wouldn't get going. And so I had some paper and oven and matches. I was going to bring those out and start the fire, but something just stopped me. So I just left it. I sat beside that smoking campfire, and it just smoked and smoked and smoked. And I didn't have a watch or anything, but I don't know, 45 minutes later, hour, all of a sudden, the fire was there and burning, and kept me warm in the night. One of the, about 2, 3 in the morning in the darkness, when I was praying, I realized that that was my vision. That the fire was telling me that as a white person, European descent, that I want to fix things right away. I want to make fire happen my way, my time. And I want to force things at times. And that the fire was telling me, don't push too hard in your ministry that I'm calling you to. That God's message and guidance was, let it smoke. Have tremendous patience in the work that you're doing. That's been a great gift. I really pray for that thirst to be deep in me and each of you. I think there are many ways that we do that. It is our source of any real wisdom. That's where our guidance comes from, our wisdom. One of the gifts that I've had as a Catholic priest is I was able to go on a 30-day retreat back when I was about 31 years old, out in Guelph. And again, to take a month where you're in silence. No internet, no iPod, iPad, whatever. No newspaper, no books, novels, no TV, nothing. Silence. You just talk for 20 minutes a day with your spiritual director. In that silence, I became so aware of God, of how active He is, how present. I felt very strong in God coming out of that. I said, I could watch 19 hours of news straight and not get depressed. Because there's that sense that God is here and He's very active. One of the things from the Aboriginal world too is kind of paying attention to the animals. That there's a lot of belief that God has created all the animals as well, and He speaks to us at times through the animals. And that just being attuned to that and aware of that. And so one retreat I was able to go on was when I was trying to decide whether I accepted to become a bishop of Mackenzie Fort Smith Diocese or not. And that was a really difficult struggle for me to accept to become a bishop or not. And so I prayed hard for that on an 8-day retreat. And after I was leaving Lumsden, the retreat center, Franciscan as well there, I was driving up out of the retreat center, and there was a flock of swans. I don't get to see swans that often. And this flock of swans just flew by and they just caught my attention. And then on the highway I was driving back up for maybe 10, 12 kilometers. They just were leading me back to where I was to go. To me, it was a sign from God. Just a kind of the words of God, guidance. This is going to be right. This is what I want. So if you get a chance to do a retreat, I really encourage you, try to make that time. It doesn't have to be 30 days. Even if you're able to take a weekend from time to time. People are able to go to Maui and to all of the places in Mexico and that. But to take a little bit of time retreat too really can be a grace time. Another way of listening is just practicing an attentiveness and contemplativeness. James Finley, who's an author who really works on contemplative prayer, he says one exercise you can do is when it's sunset time. Find a place where you can watch the sunset by yourself in the quiet. And just sit there as the sun sets and it gets darker and darker and darker. Don't try to think about a bunch of stuff, figure things out. Just try to be attentive to the ending of that day. Just that kind of practice can ground us, make us in touch with that deeper part of us. An exercise in contemplation and listening. At Mass, we know how we can be so distracted at Mass. It certainly happens to me too. But practicing, trying to just be aware. Again, Jesus was born in a stable in Bethlehem. Most of Bethlehem wasn't even aware what was happening there. But a few were. And at Mass, we have God so tangible in the Word, in the gathering of us people, and in the Eucharist. To be aware. Asking God to help us to really know that He is there, that we're bumping up right against Him. Sometimes an awareness, presence of God with our friends. A month ago or so, I was out with some people having supper, and Bishop Corriveau and Archbishop Pettypaw were there at that lunch. And I was looking across at those two good bishops, and it just struck me, most likely, they will be in the kingdom of heaven. And I want to be there with them. And to be aware of that goodness and God's presence in our friends. To have some sense of appreciation of that. Another thing is our Bible. One of the things that is so helpful in me is each morning I pray through the gospel of the day. Again, trying to ask God to give me the guidance, the insight that I need. What words is He speaking to me? Very rich, very helpful for me. again, like Ablaza, will people see us as good listeners to God? Disciples that know that it all begins by hearing God, being in touch with Him, trying to be guided by His words and wisdom. I really pray that in each of your journeys and what's reasonable in your life and your vocation, that you too are good listeners to our God like Ablaza.